So how many participants have registered?
Around like 80 to yesterday, so we'll see who is here. We have a long waiting list, so they will accept them now soon. And we are already 32 here, so yeah. Just want to check if we have Irena Ivanova in the waiting room. Please let her in, or she's already with us. Irena, are you here?
No, I don't think so.
Okay, I'm gonna call her just a sec.
Okay, Valentina is here. Alexandra, make Yasmina co-host. Okay, it's 11. I'm letting everyone in.
Германија е во голема опасност од напади поврзани со радикални.
Dina, are all admitted now? Can we start? Yeah, okay. Tina, is everything okay? We can start, right? You're here. Irena, I spoke with her. Perfect. Hello, everyone. I welcome you here to today's event. Can transparency really help us? Society of their transparency. I welcome to Ms. Irena Ivanova, to our speakers from Slovenia, for hello from the colleagues from the civil society sector, from collaborators from state institution. I welcome you all. My name is Alexandra Savovska and I'm from the MCIC. I will give you introduction to today's event. But first, let me acknowledge about the dire situation we are finding ourselves in. Western Europe and Balkans are facing second spike of infection of the COVID. We are in the midst of closure of public spaces, restriction of movements. But even in these circumstances, I hope you do find the strength to continue with your professional and personal lives and continue to balance it out and stay protected from the corona crisis. Before I introduce the speakers, let me just give a few technical guidelines in order to have the smooth course of the discussion here on Zoom. I would like to mention that this event will be run in English, And in small part, one of the speakers will try to balance Serbian Croatian with Macedonian, but we provide that interpretation for you. So for the people who need translation, go on the end screen on Zoom in the interpretation button, press the channel that you like to speak. If you need Macedonian translation, then choose the Macedonian channel. Be aware that in this translation process, you will hear 20% the audio of the original speaker, and then 80% you will hear the translation. So don't be confused if you hear both audios. This is how Zoom is set. I ask all of you who are not having the mic to mute your mics and leave it like that until you speak. And if you want to speak, then you choose the raise hand option on Zoom. We will register this, and after the speakers are done, we will have a question and answer session where you can take the word. But for every one of you who really have some burning question to pose or have some opinions to share, some useful information, use the chat option here on Zoom. Everybody will see what you want to share, and we will address it accordingly. I just ask everybody to be correct and respect the opinions of others. Just want to share with you that we will record this Zoom session, and this goes live on Facebook because we have audience there. Everybody who did not manage to sign up for today's event and be here with us in the virtual room of Zoom will have chance to hear us there. If you have questions and you're listening on Facebook, post that there. Our team will transfer them here and we will answer them. Let me say that this event is organized under the program of Sustainable Civil Society, State Funding of Civil Society Organization, which is implemented by MCIC in cooperation with the Balkan Developmental Network, BC Sadana, and the Center for Information Development and Cooperation of Civil Society Organization in Slovenia, CNVVOS. We are financially supported by the European Union, and one big part of this program is strengthening the capacity of civil society organization for transparent and accountable work, and this event serves that purpose. MCIC has been dedicated ever so long to build the capacity of civil society organization in this area. We try to create conditions so that these values and principles of democracy, like transparency and accountability, to be practiced by civil society organizations and then be promoted by them. I think it is incumbent on us to show greater commitment to establish a self-regulatory mechanism here in Macedonia, and then to follow the global trends of transparency and accountability, and then show greater openness towards the public, something in areas that I think it needs to be further discussed and improved. In terms of transparency, let me just mention that this spring we have published the governance report on transparency and accountability for civil society organization, and we found out from the surveyed organizations that many organizations in Macedonia do prepare final financial and narrative reports, but then we also found out that not all of them care to publish these reports to the public. So at the end, we are left with substantial number of organizations who, even though devote time to prepare final reports, they don't care to publish them to the public. And I think this is this red signal that we found out. And if we speak about the numbers of sharing information about the employees in the organization, or numbers about the members of different organizational bodies, you really cannot find the information that you need if you want to engage with the organizations. So, but we also do know that transparency is much more than preparing a report. This is why we came up to the idea with Tina to provide this kind of sharing platforms and learning platforms so to see how organizations from civil society sector in Slovenia utilize the transparency mechanism and think and act on this matter. We do think that this is an issue that constantly needs to be redesigned for each organization internally, but also on a collective level, on sectoral level, in this kind of like platforms and in networks. And I hope that this is why you are here with us. And let me now focus on what we'll hear and who will be presenting today. First of all, we'll have the honor to be addressed by Ms. Irena Ivanova. She is a program manager at the European delegation in Skopje. She's been with us since the very beginning of the implementation of the program. Like no other member of the donor community, she encourages us to mainstream these global trends of transparency and accountability, hence this implementation of the program. And I think she herself manages to put these principles in the EU guidelines for development of civil society sector for the countries of the enlargement process. Then we'll hear from 4 organizations from Slovenia that come from different sectors and cover more or less different kind of activities. First, we will hear from Tina Divjak. She's from Crnovoz. She's head of advocacy there. This is an organization that is umbrella organization that support development of civil society sector in Slovenia. They offer quality standard, they offer assessment and integrity plans for civil society organization in order to achieve greater transparency and accountability. Today, she will speak with us about their recent experience with the charity navigator and what was the goal, how it helps civil society organizations there. Then we will hear from, I just want to mention that take Tina as a host because we are together in implementation of this program, and she will help us manage the presentations from her colleagues from Slovenia more smoothly. So thank you, Tina, for your participation in this creation of the event. Thank you a lot. Then we have Peter Tomasic. He's Secretary General in Caritas Slovenia. This is an organization that works on, covers implementation of social programs there and mainly deals with humanitarian aid. Peter will try to speak with us how to build trust through transparency. We'll cover management of resources, transparency of results, and of donations received in their campaigns in Slovenia. With us also here is Natasha Pošelj. She is a director of Amnesty International Slovenia. I am sure you all know this organization that covers the topic of protection of human rights everywhere and in Slovenia as well. She will speak about about the values and principles of fundraising, how to communicate clear values when doing fundraising. Then she will touch upon the transparency of resources and cost, and also of the donation received and their monitoring. Last but not least, with us here today is Jaka Kranjc. He's a General Secretary of Association for Environmentalists Without Borders in Slovenia. They are doing activities for environmental protection. They want to see a world waste-free, so it's really a huge task upon them, and he will try to communicate with us how to communicate more transparently the achievements of the organizations, and then how touch upon the efficiency of the organizational operations. I hope this was very short and a slight warm-up for what we should expect. I don't want to add more. I hope everything works and then you can hear me well and then translation is working. I like now to give the mic to Irena. Irena, here, you can take it.
Thank you, Alexandra, for the introductory part as well as for the nice words. I also appreciate the detailed, let's say, introductory in a sense what we're going to have this meeting or conference. First of all, I would like to share some of the human touch in all of this. I was really looking forward, and there was a kind of surprising joy this morning that I'm going to be part of this event, because the COVID situation have really restricted us for tete-a-tete cooperation, and we in civil society are actually living. This is our energy and life. So we could not function with, should I say, more administrative and bureaucratic procedures or communication, but we, in order to have proactive approach, to have joint visions, and to have innovative ideas, we actually live on this interaction, and I'm happy at least now in digital form we can have it also with our colleagues in Slovenia. About the very project, I will start from the very beginning, but I promise I will try to be short. It's that when we were having the call for proposals, and with this project was part of the candidates, I was very happy that this was the first project in the enactment of EC guidelines, where civil society recognized and we were open to start this process of being self-reflecting in the quality of the transparency, and also try to should I say, infect the other colleagues to look more in this important issue, but also one of the 6 objectives of the EC guidelines. So and there is nothing more effective than civil society themselves to start advocating and working on this very important aspect of their work, which is transparency, which is also the accountability, and of course capability of full-fledged working and articulating their main objectives to the constituencies, to public, and to institutions. I'm happy that I wouldn't go in details because we have 4 institutions from our colleagues in Slovenia that will touch upon the specifics of the importance in transparency in their work, because as Alexandra said, the transparency, it's not only the classical definition of how we are transparent with our funding, how good we are managing the funding. It's much more transparency. It's actually opening the trust to the constituencies, to our target groups and final beneficiaries. They are more proactive working with us, and they are improving the trust in civil society as they are advocates of their needs, as they are also service providers, especially in this COVID situation. And we saw very much in our country, but I'm fully aware also in the regional projects in the whole Western Balkan region, how important was the effective civil society work in helping the marginalized, vulnerable groups that are not only the typical that we used to have, but in the COVID situation, these groups increased from those who never have been. Here we have, I can see from the Macedonian civil society organizations, I can see a few of them that were working effectively on the ground with the local community, and maybe later on in the discussions part I'm encouraging them to share this experience. Now, when I will reflect very shortly what Alexandra said, our need assessment that we did indeed. I will speak about the Macedonian society. Its civil society have in these last 10 years increased enormously their work, utilized a lot of funds from the donor community, and actually have should I say, developed the work in the areas they were working, but also have touched upon other related sectors and have increased and wider their actions. That means usually also increasing of the workload, but also increasing of the funds that they are managing. And we in the delegation, through the civil society facility, have provided quite amounts, and the civil society have utilized in these 10 years this funding, and we have detected a lot of good practices, but also we can have also recommendations for improving. Rightfully, Alexandra pointed out that civil society organizations in the country are definitely following the legal requirements of providing financial report, have a regular audit, etc. But there is something I would say in the culture of the civil society organizations that they are not always happy, or they are reluctant, at least 1/3, to share these reports. That means they are still not understanding that the transparency on their web page, anybody that can open the web page and see with what funding they were working, what is the amount of the human resource they're engaging, which should be a good way of articulating that they are also a good employer, and with whom they are working. It's actually bringing trust to their constituencies. That means they will be relied more by the users, but also by the institutions themselves. So this project is very important also in this aspect, open as an opener and as should I say, it is efficient in the networking of those who would like to speak open, for those who are seeing opportunity to be more transparent in the ways of actually engaging their constituencies more through this transparency, and also bringing more strengthened links of cooperation with their institutions. On this issue, I will also mention that visibility also form of transparency. With Alexandra and with the colleagues in the project, we were discussing this a lot as well, which was also one of the important objectives of the EU delegation to improve this. And with the other projects, we were also working a lot and capacity building for the civil society. The most important thing is that civil society needs to also strengthen the cooperation with the public institutions, especially for our country, where hopefully we are about to open the negotiations. I would like to be optimist. It is very important that transparency is also connected with the sector approach of the civil society organizations, not to work in isolation or in certain groups, but also to strengthen their hands to cooperate with the grassroots organizations that are articulating the same sector objectives, and with the other colleagues, which are, should I say, equal in the capacities. The sector approach is very much needed in the negotiation processes, and it will help proactively the institutions to properly lead the negotiation. One of the most important issues is that through the transparency, which, as I present my opinion, it's much more that expressing how much money we spent this year for the projects. It's also bringing a certain hope to the final beneficiaries that we work. And today we will have the pleasure to listen to our colleagues sharing the best practices from Slovenia in different sets, how transparency is functioning in humanitarian area, in ecology, in resource management, fundraising, but also a very important thing which I'm really eager to listen to Tina, how the more developed civil society organizations are stretching their hands to the small civil society and grassroots and teaching them for the standardization that will be very easily bring the trust to their constituencies, and this will be also contributing to their growth. So in this respect, this best sharing is very important, and I encourage also our colleagues from civil society in North Macedonia to share also the best practices and to consult with our colleagues in Slovenia whether they are on the right track. I'm sure most of them are on the right track, especially in this difficult COVID situation. They not surprise me, but they thrill me that we have civil society organizations that are very much aware what a change there in society, and they should be encouraged, especially with the instrument of transparency and accountability. Thank you very much. I wish you a very successful conference today, and I'm really looking forward for many more such conferences where we can share the best practices with the colleagues in the region. Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you, Irena, for addressing these important questions for us and giving us the support on and on. I just want to mention a few things. I know that some people have problem with the interpretation. I hope there are very few of you that need interpretation and didn't manage to find the interpretation. A few things. If you are following us on web, please log into your app on Zoom or that is downloaded on your desktop. This is how you will better access the interpretation button. And if you have this app on, go on the globus sign on the lower part of the Zoom screen and choose Macedonian channel only. And this is how you will listen to the rotation. I tried a few times during while Irena was speaking, and I could hear the translation in Macedonian very well. So I hope this is a small issue. And now I go with Tina. Tina, please take a mic.
Hi, thank you, Alex. Hello, everybody. Most of you I have already met once or twice or many times before, because I'm a regular guest in my dear North Macedonia. And I know that if this year we would have a normal world, many of you would be actually in Slovenia right now having a study visit on transparency. But here we are on Zoom. We are after this year quite keen on all the digital tools already. So we will try to do our best to share our experience, our knowledge with you. But of course, it's not the same as if we would eat and drink together behind the same table, right? But in order to get as much from this event as possible, I really encourage you to ask questions, to post comments, because for us, we will present and say what we have to say, but it's depends a lot from your questions, from your concrete dilemmas that you are facing with. When we were preparing this event, we were actually thinking that we should approach it from the, let's say, more general or horizontal point of view, from the point of view of CNVOS, and that we want to show you how different kinds of organizations actually approach the topic of transparency. Because I know that in Macedonia, often the same as in Slovenia, when we present some example, many of organizations say, oh, but this is not for us, we are so different. And in my firm opinion, this is not really the case. That's why we wanted to outsmart you and such comments with bringing you different examples from different fields of activities. But before going to my dear guests, I will shortly explain the idea behind our charity navigator. Many of you know that CNVOS is a national NGO umbrella network. We have a set of different activities with which we support NGOs in Slovenia with trainings, information sharing, counseling, etc. While on the other hand, also we deal a lot of promotion, advocacy, very important, and also countering pressures and attacks these days. It has become extremely important. And because we have always actually since always been faced with questions from media, for example, or different types of politicians, where does the money go? How much money is spent by organizations, and how much money goes directly to beneficiaries? And in this kind of questions actually arise each December, because December is all about charity, for example, and then when there is some kind of a natural disaster, or there is some kind of a big fundraising campaign for some sick kid or something, or if there is some kind of a scandal or fraud, because of course there are always some scandals or fraud, or every so often somebody does something bad, and then here we go again. And that's why we actually each time when we got this kind of questions, we engaged into data gathering to see what to say back to the media, and then we wanted to have this data for all humanitarian organizations in Slovenia, and we made a survey of their web pages. And we discovered, as it was said already by Alex and by Irena, that many organizations don't have anything on their web pages, meaning that even though we know, because we work with them closely, that their internal practices are transparent, there are checks and balances, everything is okay with financial management, but the public doesn't see that. Because the annual financial report that is sent each year to IPES, this is the agency, the public agencies that gather public the annual reports, is accountant report. You don't see anything out of it. So you don't, like the average public from the average organization in Slovenia cannot get very simple information. So how much money did you collect by donations, for example? What did you do with it? So concrete results. I don't know how many free lunches did you, or food packages did you deliver, or how many kids did you bring to seaside or whatever, and how much, and what were the costs, for example. So how much did you spend and how much did it go to the direct beneficiaries? And this is bad. This is not okay, because precisely of this, I don't want to say hiding information, but in a way it is, the public trust in the NGO, in the humanitarian sector is lower. And due to this, not only that we are facing these pressures and attacks and everything, but public trust is low. Therefore, humanitarian organizations don't get as much funds as they could through fundraising, donation, gathering. And that's why we decided to develop a charity navigator. We saw this in the USA, in the UK. It's a, let's say, a search tool, a comparison search tool between organizations. In the US, primarily intended for donors, for example, so that they can look and check and compare organizations, how transparent they are, how efficient they are. But in Slovenia, we wanted this tool to be used as an encouragement for organizations, let's say as a peer-to-peer pressure kind of, in order for them to be more transparent. And then on the second phase, for donors to come to the tool and check organizations. So the initial plan was to launch this web page in 2019, so last year. But when checking the methodology, during the pilot phase, we actually discovered that many organizations would score quite low. We have a 0 to 5 scale, but we are CNVOS. It's not our intention to shame organization. Our intention is to show how well we are functioning. That's why then we decided for 2020 to be a pilot year, so that all humanitarian organizations would fill in their data for 2019, and then we would together see where are the weak points, for example, where they are scored bad, and then we would together with them develop mechanisms for their organizations to improve these elements, for example, so that this would be improved for the 2020 financial year. And then next year, so 21, we could launch official web page, like here we are scored like 4 out of 5, we are very transparent and we have all the data here, and etc. So this was the idea. But COVID came, right? So with the first wave of COVID, the submission of the annual report for 2019 was delayed. And now again, with the second wave, I mean, Peter could tell you humanitarian organizations are so overworked with COVID and the volunteers and support, that we know that now it's not a good time actually to nag them with transparency. So we will wait a little bit for this whole situation to subside a bit, so that we can really focus on this. I will shortly show you the web page. As I said, let me warn you, it's not so nice and sexy as it should be. It's very basic, but to explain you how it will look like and what is the methodology, what is the criteria. It would be, okay. So this is the web page. You can see it, right? So the idea is that you could here poišti organizaciju, it means search the organization. So you could type in the organization and the first one would be like listed here, and then they are scored. How they are scored? We have a methodology that has 4 main elements. I would not go into details. If you are interested in the details of the methodology, we can send you the document, but just the main parts are supervision over functioning, strategic planning, financial management, and transparency. There are 2 things that I actually, in the scope of these main elements, I want to show you. One is the indicator in the scope of the financial management, and this is the percentage of the donation that is intended for the program. This is this division, you know, how much money it goes directly to the beneficiaries, because usually people expect that this should be 100%, but then the question is, okay, but if we just forward all the gathered donations to final beneficiaries, how can humanitarian organization function? Because of course there are some overheads, and we need to teach actually also the public and media and politicians that good and professional humanitarian organization cannot function on ethical fuel only. And can you mute somebody?
Tina, can you mute the participants who are unmuted, please? Thank you.
Yeah, okay. I think it's okay now. So we say that if you that it's okay if you spend like 30% of the gathered donations for yourself. So 30% is let's say a ceiling, but of course the less you spend, the better your score is. But it's very important that we are clear that yes, some costs are there, and we need to respect that. And then just I want to also show you the transparency part. What for us means being transparent. First of all is yes, that organization has annual reports published, the narrative annual reports, but also that these reports are understandable to the normal public. Not, organizations should not use the high-level abstract project language that nobody outside the organization actually understands. And similarly is for the financial reports. First of all, yes, they are published, and second of all, they are understandable. We call this household financial report, so that it is clear how much money came into organizations, what were the costs, and what are the results. And then that you also have, for example, published salaries of the management team and the ratio between the salaries. So the difference between the salary of the director or secretary general, whoever is the main manager, and the average of the salaries of the rest of the staff, and that you have published your key staff. So who is employed, who are your key volunteers, who are the members of your supervisory board, and that you have published a financial plan for the current year. So this for us is the minimum of transparency so if you then, for example, choose organization, then you get basic information about the contexts, and then the very, let's say, description, who are they, their mission, their vision, values, employees, some technical stuff. And then if you can check the scoring. So they have like 5 stars, and you can check how they are scored per each indicator. And then you can choose also to compare between two organizations, etc. So on the long run, we wanted for, as I said, for the next year, the web page to be ready to include all humanitarian organizations. This is approximately 180. And for them, it would be kind of obligatory, let's say, peer pressure for them to sign in. But this tool will be also used by all other organizations that actually fill in voluntarily these forms. As, for example, we were talking with Jaka, because Ecologi Brezmaja are really like into donations, for example, and all other organizations that are fundraise and that want to be part of this web page. We also want to enable direct donation giving, so that you could like press, for example, Slovenska Caritas, and then just directly donate because you like what you see. For example, so these are the plans. But as you see, we are like, everything is developed, just the data is missing, and we hope that the situation will improve, so that we would feel okay to approach humanitarian organizations to give us this data. And what I also there is also one important aspect. The question is, how do we make sure that the data is real, that it's not fake? That's why the what you see is a front, but organizations that will fill in the data will be the methodology foresees that we will check, for example, 10 to 15% of all organizations. So we will make, let's say, financial audit, but informal one, like CNVOS. We will check all the proofs, all the documents, and so we are the ones that guarantee that this data on the web page is actually true. So this, in short, is how the NGO Navigator will function. We really hope that not only it will increase the transparency of organizations, but we see it also as a support tool, because through the methodology, organization and our support organization can really learn what is transparency all about, actually. What do you need to think about if you want to be transparent? Now, I see that there is a question in the chat. Yes.
Oh, would you like to take it now? Because I think it's a reaction to something that you said during the presentation, or we should follow the other presentation, and then I asked Susanna to bear with us till the very end, and then we will take this important question for answer.
Okay. Yes, I agree. Let's wait for all the presentations, and then, okay. Yeah. So I will give now the floor to my colleagues. As I said, I chose them precisely for their organizations because we know them very well, and because we at one point or another, when somebody was asking a question, we recognized them as a good practice of something related to transparency. And this is also why we talked with them, what they need to emphasize for you to see how they function in their everyday work. So first of all, Peter Tomažić Slovenska Caritas, I think that the Caritas is not an organization that needs a special representing, that everybody knows Caritas. But for us, for example, Slovenska Caritas is one of the most transparent humanitarian organization in Slovenia. So yay, Caritas. Peter, please.
Sorry. Ok. Ja ću pričati na srpsko-hrvatskom. Ovako. Vidi se, dobro je? Ok. Moja lična karta kao prvo. 21 godina pratim socijalne i dobrotvorne programe naše mreže, našeg networka. 8 godina sam bio član komisije za deljenje sredstava na fundaciji invalidskih i humanitarnih organizacija. Svake godine dijele 20 milijuna eura organizacijama. Bavim se medijem, promociji, prikupljenju sredstava, fundraisingom i od marta sam generalni sekretar. Ovu funkciju je rodio COVID. Šta ćemo? Inače sam ekonomista, ali imam srce na humanitarnoj strani. Nešto o Caritas u Sloveniji, tako da ćete dobiti neku sliku sa kakvim podacima i s čime radimo. Ja sam u nacionalnoj Caritas, onda imamo 6 regionalnih i otprilike 470 lokalnih Caritasa. Imamo 11.000 volontera i 120 zaposlenih. Celokupno imamo godišnje 10 milijuna eura izdataka, to je naš budžet. Radimo opštu humanitarnu pomoć, programe socijalne zaštite, prevenciju, advocacy i fundraising. Imamo više nego 100.000 korisnika u različitih programa i ove godine slavimo 30 godina od početka, ali samo virtualno, ne može drugčije. Dobro, a sad malo šire. Šta rade humanitarne organizacije kod nas? Neke se bave uglavnom fundraisingom, bave samo to. Neke su volonterske i bave se dobrotvornim programa, dele hranu, odjeće i ostalo. Neki su profesionalni, rade profesionalne programe, profesionalnu socijalnu pomoć, a neki se bave samo aktivizmom, prevenciju, advocacy i slično. I onda su kombinacije. Neki rade sve, neki rade samo jednu stvar. Mi radimo praktički sve od ovoga u jednom. Zašto to pričam? Zbog toga jer prvo moraš da znaš šta organizacija radi ako hoćeš da razumiješ kako ide sa parama i gde su troškovi, kako je cijela logika. Dobro, prvo o troškovima. Tu ima mnogo interpretacija i kod nas. Neki kaže ovako, neki onako. Prvo su troškovi za realizaciju projekta, programa. I to su direktni troškovi. Možemo utvrditi da imaju direktno vez sa korisnicima. A ovdje je materijal, usluge i isto i rad naših zaposlenih u savjetišćima, svi oni što rade u programima i mi moramo cijelo vrijeme govoriti javnosti i donatorima i ljudi su pomoć i rad je pomoć, ne samo materijal. Sve ovo je pomoć, možda i bitnija nego kruh ili hljeb, šta ja znam. Onda imamo realizaciju fundraisinga, praktički su tu dobrotvorne akcije. U Caritas godišnje sabiramo oko 3,5 milijuna eura donacija. Od 3,5 do 4 milijuna. I tu imaju isto direktni troškovi, rad, materijal, usluge, a sve ostalo je administracija. Za sve programe što radimo imamo isto administraciju. Ne? Treba računovodstvo, treba management, treba inspekcije, ono što od nas zahtjeva država i ono što treba da komuniciramo međusobno u networku. Šta je bitno za donatore, za one ljude koji daju 20 eura, 10 eura, 5 eura? Ne? Prvo pitanje je šta se je desilo sa mojim eurom donacije? Šta je stiglo do čovjeka koji treba pomoć? Ako idemo na neki primjera, ne? Prvo su se desili troškovi fundraisinga. Mi smo dobili 1 euro, ali 5 centa smo prvo potrošili za fundraising. Onda ide 95 centa u program. Tamo ima isto administracija i 9 cenata smo potrošili za administraciju. Evo, ostalo nam 86 cenata za sprovođenje programa ili za direktnu pomoć. I tako možemo da kažemo da je 14 cenata ili 14, kako kažete, dobro, vidite. To je
cenat isto.
Da, to je opterećenje naših donacija, za primjera. Ne? Ali jedne organizacije u izvještajima pričaju samo o ovih 5 cenata, a zaboravljaju na ovih 9 u programima. Ne? I ovo je sve ukupno opterećenje 1 eura. Ne? Ako dam 1 euro, 14 cenata treba za administraciju i treba za fundraising. Onda, šta je cilj transparentnosti? Šta je cilj transparentnosti je odgovor prvo kako radimo programe. Kakve su naše plate, kakve imamo prostorije, vozila, telefoni, jesu fancy ili pogodni, jer je jeftino, je skupo, je efikasno, neefikasno, stručno, nestručno, radimo sa srcem ili sa kamenom ovdje. To je sve bitno. Ne? Možeš imati visoke troškove u programima i dobro radiš i profesionalno radiš i možeš imati i niske troškove, ali ništa ne radiš. Pitanje je što ostane na kraju za korisnike ili za društveno dobro, ali odgovor na to nisu samo brojevi. Ne? Nisu samo brojevi i to je veoma bitno. Financijska kontrola, ovako ide kod nas. Znam da mnogi imate ovo možda i bolje sređeno, ali ja ću sad na nekim primjerima od Caritasa. Prvo, treba imati, svaka organizacija treba imati neki odbor sa barem 5 ljudi, nezavisnih od plate. Nezavisnih od plate i neki nadzorni odbor sa barem 3 ljudi, a ne koji imaju neko znanje o financijama i da su ti ljudi kredibilni. Ne može biti ovdje većinski financeri ili korisnici, oni moraju da budu u manjini. A ne, to zapravo mora da bude nezavisni odbor, jedan i drug. Sa izuzetkom kada se ide o fundacijama. Ako ja dam 5 milijuna eura za nešto, onda verovatno treba da budem u odboru glavni. Ali to je druga zgodba. Mi ne radimo sa fundacijama. Onda revizija za sve naše organizacije koje imaju budžet od 1 miliona eura. To je nujno, mislim, to treba da rade. Onda javne opšte skupštine za manje organizacije, da može svaki da dođe tamo, da vidi, da sliši, da pita, i ako nije član društva. Onda mi pravimo na slovenačkoj Caritas, na nacionalnoj razini, revizije svih javnih sredstava koje dobijemo za celu mrežu. Revizor ide na dole i pravi reviziju za sve. I onda mi dobijemo ovdje rezultate koje možemo uspoređivati. I organizacije nemaju, lokalne organizacije imaju drugčiji feeling nego bi neko došao iz nacionalne Caritas i rekao pa vi ovo ne radite u redu, pa ovo nije u redu, a onda dođe revizor i kaže ovako je u redu, ovako nije u redu. Ne? I to je bitno, mislim, mnogo bolja komunikacija. Onda veoma su dobre kontrole javnih finansera. Mi smo se mnogo naučili u 30 godina od tih kontrola. Su različite, sa različitim zahtjevama, ali veoma, bojimo se ih svi normalno, ali mnogo se možemo naučiti iz toga. Imamo i računski sud, kako se kaže, ona institucija na državnoj ravni koja isto dođe i kontrolira nas generalno, a ne? Kako radimo sa financijama. A šta je najbitnije kod transparentnosti su pravila, vrijednosti i poslovna kultura. Sve ovo je ne samo pravila i vrijednosti i poslovna kultura. Prvo, svaka naša organizacija, mi se trudimo da radi na zajedničkom interesom, a ne na interesom jednog čovjeka. Karizma je dobra, karizma, svi razumijemo, a jedan čovjek koji radi sve, to nije baš najbolje za NGO. I tako i mi ovdje u Sloveniji vidimo neke anomalije, imamo i family NGOs, business NGOs, government NGOs or one-man band NGO. To su neke anomalije koje nisu dobre, jer mora da ide za grupu nezavisnih ljudi sa istim vrijednostima, a ne oni su osnivatelji, oni vode NGO pač na neki podlagi vrijednosti, šta znam. Onda sve naše organizacije moraju da imaju etični kodeks. Mi imamo u našem statutu, u onom main dokumentu imamo dozvoljen teret donacija. Do 15% u prosjeku. Nikad ne dođemo do tih 15%. Trudimo se da su naši troškovi i administracije i fundraisinga generalno tamo oko 10%. Onda stroga definicija namenske potrošnje. Nema jedna kesa, vreća i da se tamo sve uzime za sve stvari. Ono što dođe za neki namen mora i da se potroši za ta namen. Onda nema špekulacije kako napraviti još više novca. To nije dobra stvar. Iako nešto izgubimo, bolje da ide novac odmah na lokalnu razinu, što prije do korisnika pomoći. Koncentracija novca nije dobra stvar. Na nikakvoj razini i na nikakvom NGO-u. Onda jasan način računovodenja, pravila i isto kultura. Onda svi u našoj organizaciji moraju da znaju šta je korupcija za nas, šta je nepoštenje. Imamo vrlo različite poglede na to, šta je nepoštenje, ali to mora da se zna i mora da bude negde u slovima, u pravilima. Onda pravila naručivanja, ponude. Ja se uvijek smijem kad kažu treba vam 3 ponude, ali onda jedan da sve 3 ponude od ovih ponudnika. To nije ništa. Barem da imaš 2 ponude, da imaš nešto za usporediti, za dokaz i onda možda jedan da još jednu ponudu i imaš 3 ponude. Tako. Ali ne ovo kako se radi i kod nas. Onaj ko ti da ponudu, ti da još 2 ostale ponude. To nije u redu. Onda prihvatljivi troškovi. Mi ne želimo biti amateri, ni u fundraisingu, ni u radu, ali ne želimo biti profesionalni i rasipni. Želimo biti skromni. Mislim da je prava da razumete riječ. Onda ništa unutar organizacija ne može da bude tajna. Ako neko od naših zaposlenika želi neku informaciju, nema problema. Nemamo tajna. Ako ih imamo, onda je problem. Onda treba nešto uraditi hitno. Ne 1 godinu poslije, ali odmah treba nešto uraditi. Onda imamo minimalne standarde za lokalne Caritas, da imaju bilancu, da imaju organe, da poštuju naša main instructions and da davaju ljetne izvještaje nama na regionalnoj ravni, a regionalna ravan na nacionalnoj ravni. Onda imamo mass standarde Caritas Internationalis. Ako želimo imati u svijetu ime Caritas, moramo ispuniti ove must ili mora se ili nujno je standarde, što su slični sa onima koje je Tina predstavljala, pa ću vam kasnije o tome. Transparentnost za javnost. Mi imamo svake godine web prezentaciju našeg godišnjeg izvještaja za cijelu mrežu. Onda možete napraviti kratku brošuru za donatore, za poduzeća i za privatne osobe. Onda imamo godišnju konferenciju za štampu gdje svaki novinar može da dođe i pita šta god želi o našim programima, troškovima. Ali moram da vam kažem da nema baš mnogo novinara koji dođu na ovu na konferenciju. Uvek davamo mogućnost da se sretnemo u našim prostorijama sa donatorima. Ako neko zove i nešto nije u redu i misli da nešto nije u redu, uvek kažemo dođite ovamo, popričat ćemo, daću vam informacije, listine i vidjet ćete šta se desilo sa vašim darom i kako i mi radimo. To onda sad još nešto primjera, samo da ja ovo uradim. Prvo, za naše izvještaje mi imamo jednu web aplikaciju za sve naše lokalne jedinice gdje oni stave svoje podatke. I onda dobijemo ukupno sve podatke za cijeli naš network, za sve organizacije. Koliko imaju volontera, samo da dođem ovdje. Evo, tako. Vidite sve organizacije naše gore, a sada imamo podatke koliko imaju volontera, koliko imaju sata rada, kako oni surađuju sa drugim organizacijama u opštini, šta je sa njihovom edukacijom, šta rade s medijama, koji su njihovi donatori, koliko ih imaju i onda nudenje pomoći. Imamo standardizirane usluge, tako da svi mogu da prate usluge na isti način. I da onda imamo broj korisnica, broj usluga i tako. Onda imamo podatke o materijalu kojeg dobijemo i o strukturi korisnika i onda je još finančni del, prihodki i sve ostalo. Tako možemo da sakupimo ove podatke i da stavimo na jedan izveštaj za sve organizacije, a možemo vidjeti i samo izveštaj za jednu organizaciju i isto svaka lokalna organizacija taj izveštaj upotrebljava za javnost, isto za svoju skupštinu, za novinare, tamo u kraju. Imamo neki mušter, standard, a ne i svi se trudimo da imamo slične izveštaje. Onda kad biramo podatke na regionalnoj razini ili na nacionalnoj razini imamo još malo sofisticirane izveštaje koji izgledaju, samo da je nađem ovo, PDF. Dobro, sad ja ne nađem ovo na mom skrinu. Samo malo da vidim ako sam nešto. Sorry, ja se učim ovog web tako. Share screen. Evo ga. Tako. Vidite, ovo je za zavisnike od tvrdih droga i za programe za alkoholičare. Ne? Imamo isto standardizirane usluge, korisnike, onda usluge i za sve usluge imamo i troškove rada, troškove materijala, troškove storitva i onda ukupno i od toga koliko daje fondacija FIHO. Njihovi izveštaji veoma su kompleksni, a mi ih uzimamo i za svoje izveštaje. Jer možemo da dobijemo mnogo podataka, da usporedimo rad regionalnih Caritasa i programe i onda možemo i deliti sredstava na toj osnovi. Onda ću samo malo da pokažem i ako nađem i standarde od Caritas Internationalis. Ovako. Stop share. Standardi, gde se do... A tu. Ok. Evo. Tako, pa ću na engleskom, možda ćete bolje razumjeti. Caritas Internationalis ima 185 standarda ukupno, a nisu svi MAS standardi. Imaju 4 velika područja, vidite ih na finance, pravila, organizacija i stakeholders. A od toga su standardi oni pod MAST koje moramo da imamo sve organizacije na nacionalnoj i na regionalnoj razini. Pošto smo katolička organizacija, moramo da poštujemo kanonsko pravo, onda civilno pravo u svim razinama i moramo imati etični kodeks, moramo imati, kada radimo sa partnerima, moraju i oni sve ovo raditi što mi radimo i moramo imati organe, statute, pravila i reviziju financijsku i tako. Dobro, ja neću o ovome u detalje i mi se trudimo da nešto uradimo sa ovih 185 standarda na tim područjima. Negde smo veoma loši, negde smo veoma dobri, ali barem nikad nećemo sve uspjeti, ali barem je to neki guideline šta treba misliti na mnogim područjima, kako organizacija radi i sve to utiče i na transparentnost. Evo, ja upam da ste me razumeli. Hvala.
Hvala, Peter. Thank you, Peter. I think that it was okay that participants understood either your Serbo-Croatian or there was a Macedonian translation. Thank you so much for this. I would just, if you are interested, dear participants, you can also check, for example, their webpage, Caritas.pk to see their, for example, their charity campaigns, and after description of the campaign, you have the concrete results, you know, what was done in the scope of this campaign, for example, and this, in my opinion, is very important. As we need to move forward, I know, but this just, yeah, okay. It's we are. I know that you forgot. That's why I said it. It's. But we need to move forward. We are now going to Amnesty International Slovenia. It is part of the Amnesty International, but it's not exactly like a branch. And why we chose this organization is that because this organization is the most successful organization in collecting individual small donations for years and years and years, and they have started when I was in high school, and I'm not that young anymore. So it's I think that they were the ones that actually broke the ice with individual donations. So Natasha, please, the floor is yours.
Yeah, apologizes. Hello, everybody. I had to close the screen in order to unmute. Thank you for the organizers for bringing up this really important topic. And thank you for inviting me on both sides, Macedonian and Slovenian. I'm really glad that you have so much that we have so much participation, and I have to admit I don't know specificities of Macedonian NGO landscape and your work, so I just sit humble here and I'll just speak from our experience and our practice. So I hope it will be of some benefit to you. So I will also just start with so as Tina said, when we discussed what would be my aspect of presentation, we decided it would be good that it's more about reporting on finances and fundraising, which is a bit unusual because Amnesty always talks about our human rights work and our campaigns and so, but so it's refreshing to speak about more technical parts and managerial for a change. So also just a short ID, just that we understand what kind of organization we are. We exist in Slovenia since '88. The organization was run by volunteers for many years. There was one administrative staff support until '99. I started to work in '99. And then we had 1.5 full-time equivalent, so 1.5 staff. And as of today, we have now 11,000 members and individuals financial supporters. So 11,000 people donate each month through direct debit. So donate a small donation. Approximately, it's in average, it's a bit around €5. So some donate more and some donate less. Which funds 11 core staff, not all are full-time. And then we have a lot for another 6 full-time staff, which comes to 17 part-time staff on fundraising, which work on recruitment and retention of members and supporters. We are Watchdog NGO, which is, in our opinion, is quite difficult to explain to people. Also because we had to build the culture of donations, because it was a culture that everything is funded by the government when we started that in 2001. And then we had to also explain to people that there are humanitarian NGOs, which are absolutely necessary and urgent and very important. But then we have another role, which is not to collect humanitarian assistance. So our beneficiaries are not the kind of beneficiaries which would get assistance in food or in some physical help. But we oversight the functioning of the government, campaign on human rights. We work on social, on legislative change, and also for individuals, but in other terms than humanitarian. We don't accept funds from government, which also brings us into quite also a difficult position in terms of survival, because there is a lot of money there which we can't ask for, and we don't want to, because this keeps our independence. But we have one exception, and we accept funding for human rights education, because we see that as not confrontational work, but we just do this as a service basically, and our independence is not at a risk here. So just, we are also part of Global Amnesty. There are around 70 sections around the world, and we are fully, we have section status since I think 94. Then there are some international members, like in Macedonia, for example, but we don't get any funding from our mother organization. For many years we did, but this funding is very thin. So if we ever wanted to grow beyond 1 staff or 2, we had to really build funding base in our own country. So now we contribute to the international organization. And in Slovenia, we are registered as the associations. So we have members. Not all of the NGOs have members, as we know. So we have annual general meeting. They vote executive committee. They vote also on the audit committee, which overlooks our functioning, including finances. And then executive committee, a director, myself, I'm responsible to the executive committee and for the work of the office. So I will just mention a bit our main stakeholders, because as we think, we are looking at our stakeholder map in order to see where, who are important audiences for us or target groups. Because this also defines our levels of accountability and then also communication. So there are quite many. So you see there we have 11,000 members and supporters. Then we have rights holders, so that would be beneficiaries. So that would be Roma people, for example, or erased, or refugees, or now we work also for the rights of elderly, for example. So different, depends. Some we work with or for decades, and some are just in shorter campaigns sometimes. And but with many we build, then if we work with organizations like, for example, transgender people or LGBT, it develops into partner NGOs, and with many we work on individual basis. Then our important stakeholder is also Amnesty headquarters in London, because it also sets many standards for reporting, for example, or many data that needs to be reported there. Then we have institutional donors. At the moment, it's European Commission also for Human Rights Education Fund grant. Then we service teachers in primary and high schools. It's 1,100 teachers get methodology or content or proposals for activism, for action every month. And then we have executive committee, of course, governments and tax and financial authorities. I mentioned partner NGOs, then we also have other partners which are not from NGO that we, for example, we cooperate in partnership with Film Festival in Ljubljana, documentary film festival. Then journalists, active volunteers, in public relations, we would say there is no such thing as general public, but I list it nevertheless, because a lot of communication is also prepared for the fragmented pieces of interested, which are then just for public. And then audience on social media and annual general meeting, of course. Then we could split these audiences or these stakeholders into internal one or external. But important thing is that each of one have their own lines of accountability and their own lines of communication. In terms of, I think Ms. said in the beginning very well about what is the purpose of transparency and accountability. What does it serve for? And of course, we all know we have certain legal requirements that we have to meet, or some project requirements about the volume of data that we need to report on. Let me just check the time. But then when we look at our audiences, at our stakeholders, it's a big purpose also of informing. We inform about our work, but also about the content of our work. As we know, informing is the first step then to people actually change positions or accept them or get motivated, and then eventually they also act and do something. So we want to raise awareness about our goals, about our activities, about where we need people to buy in with action, where we also need people to buy in with donations. Then it's also about building and maintaining trust, as this is the matter of, it's a very important asset for Amnesty, because people need to have credibility, people need to trust that we work well, that our information is credible, that they can rely on it, they can act upon it, but also that our work is worthwhile and that they will eventually also want to financially support it. So it's also to motivate, to join, to get active, to participate, and to donate. So in these terms, just to fulfill legal requirements, we could also produce information that could be dry, that could be without photos, without infographic, but we want information and communication to be inspirational, to be motivating, and to really be informing, and to really maintain the relationships we have with each of the audiences. So, if we see transparency as, the process that kind of makes us easy to see through, that information has to be accessible, it has to be honest, and it has to provide a full account, but it also has to be easy to understand. So even if we want to provide full account, we can't produce 150-page report, because then maybe just 3 people will read it. It has to be easy to understand, has acceptable language, and it has to be verified in some cases. Sometimes this can be formal verification, like from external auditors, which we always give our financial accounts. And in some cases, it can also be informally if some public figures support your work or say that, something really persuaded them, or they feel strongly with areas that we do. Like we have some such examples also in our membership newsletter brochure, for example. So then we have communication channels with which we communicate, because it's not just the one piece of the report per year that we see our accountability and our transparency, that we can achieve it with that, but it's also in many cases it's ongoing communication about our work and about our achievements. So there would be a website. Then there are different other channels like Instagram, Facebook, printed material, which are not so many, and a newsletter, for example, for members. And let's see, then I thought it would be economically about the time if I just keep them here, but you know, we could, if there's time, we can change and do the live version of the website. But here you see that we have about us, and here are who we are. So there's, on these different clicks, there are all of the employees listed, our main documents, our main goals. So here we worked in transparent way. There's a statute, our board members as well. We don't put their photos, but you know, in Amnesty, sometimes it's not popular to be in Amnesty. So I had a colleague, I mean, somebody I knew who had the same name. She, you know, people used to call her home 20 years ago already, and she received threats. So, you know, we also try to preserve people's privacy. Also, not everybody who is employed has its photo. 2 are missing, but you know, still. Then we have all the important documents and the annual reports for, you know, the current year. This year we also made one for January, August, because our AGM was this year in autumn because of COVID. But then it's the whole history of the reports up to, I think, 2010 or even earlier. This is a welcome letter that every member receives when they become members. So it's also our achievements. And because people participate in global campaigns as well, we also list some of the global achievements and what are our current efforts and campaigns at the moment. Then we also have welcome call to also check people if also they have some questions and so on. This is the brochure of new members, where it also has our areas of work, our achievements, also about how we are funded, what are about the acceptance of funds. Then there's newsletter which receive, which, you know, you can be a member or not member. Everybody can subscribe to the newsletter, and this is then ongoing communication, sometimes on weekly basis, sometimes every 2 weeks. Then this is our membership magazine, which is we try to shrink paper communication. So we used to have it 4 times a year. Now it's 3 times a year, and it goes to about 8,000 recipients. And this one would also have our report. On this one, you can see that it had the January-August report. The previous version had a report of the annual report of the previous year. And this is how these reports look like. So now this report is also, when we give reports to with the balance sheets, for example, to the tax audit or somebody, you know, we also give them with photos, and it's the same thing. So we can, it's on website, it's in the paper version. So it's used to wherever it needs to go. So this one I made bigger because it's Stink on it, and it was quite an achievement to get him and his support to refugees. And then this is the report that we made just for the 8 months of this year. And then these are last 6 reports. So each for the whole year would have 8 pages, and they would all have, as you see, you know, one has our photos on the front page. And as you see, we try, it doesn't have the standard look. We try to be a bit creative, because it's also then interesting for us if it's a bit different every year, and we explore, you know, how to make it more exciting and interesting, and how to achieve that people actually read it once they get it. So these are the last 6 then. Then about the financial sources and costs, reporting, this would then be about finances, about income and expenditure, and then especially on fundraising costs and results. So I put then 2 clips, you know, from this is what is in the activity report. So each one would have the finances as well. And you can compare a bit how much our income grew from 2014 to last year. So now it's income last year were 764,000 euros. And you can see that it's, my 15 minutes is up, so I'll try to close. that our 85% of our income comes from individual donations, so from individuals, and they can be either members or just financial supporters, because in our country still some people have issues with membership, so it's up to them how they want to join. And then with the expenditure, you can see that our campaigns and human rights education is 35%, and all the rest is basically, then we have international engagement and support and also membership fee. But then last year, even 41% went for the fundraising. So we would not score high in the, or we will not score high in this. But I think it's really different when you don't only rely on the applications, because this is then one-off investment, and then of course it's reporting and so. But here it's really heavy investment, and really every fundraising is hard work. But this character of such fundraising, when we do it actually on the street, we do it knocking on people's doors, and so it's also it's time consuming and it's labor consuming, and this means it's financially consuming. And if we don't accept governmental funding, this is the kind of the proportions that we need to accept that we live in. As you see, it also fundraising gets more expensive, because in 2014, our fundraising was it was still a lot, but it was 30%, and it's growing. So it's quite a challenge for all the NGO community that relies on the market, basically, of individuals, how to cope with this. So this is also how we report on what we do. So our colleague that you see here, Adela Palamar, she's a telemarketing coordinator. Then there are two coordinators and groups that do face-to-face, which is when people are on the street and recruiting donors and members, and then door-to-door when people go from in people's home. Then we also pay attention that we communicate values of our fundraising policy, which I mentioned that we don't accept funds from government for our research and activist work. The exception is HRE, human rights education. And we also make sure we have it in, this is the page from the membership brochure, for example. It's explained how we get funded, why donation from individuals is so crucial. It's not only gives us money to work, but it gives us independence. And this is really important. Once, one NGO called me and said, okay, Natasha, call, because they're not giving food to asylum applicants until the official procedure is started, which was 12 days at a time in average. We are waiting for the application, we can't do that. So sometimes this independence is really important, although, it's not all the time, of course, that governmental funding would mean interference with independence. Then this is on website. It's even in our press release, for example. Our template for the press release also has the footer where it's explained, in short, what organization we are, and also how are we funded, and the stress on accountability. Then I would just shortly mention internal transparency, because I think sometimes we forget about it, and sometimes even bigger tensions can arise in, even if teams are small, if there's no flow of information, if information is difficult in getting accessible. And then after all, we have our internal audiences and stakeholders, which need as well full accountability and full information. So these are just 3 pages, Casalo, how do you say it? And the dashboard of our office report, which goes to our executive board each month. So it does have some 9 pages and then some attachments, but at the first, now we expand it on 2 pages, but the point was to have 1 page with just dashboard, with just, graphic information. So for somebody, it's enough to look at that, to see where we are, if we are on the green, amber, or red. And then to have more detailed information if needed. And then, for example, just information for the board, for the staff. It's all of the documents are in one place and everybody can access them. So it would be on international level, important stuff. Documents about executive board and directors. So for example, here you would have my contract. So all the other contracts are personally, is data protection. So we don't share any other contracts, but my contract is there for everybody to click it and open. And then, for example, you would have my goals for each year with report and with the assessment of the board, and then notes from the previous mandate and so on. Then we have all the amnesty documents and all the current plans, reports, and so on. So it's all kind of in one place, so it's easily accessible. And I think we have to also think about this internal transparency, which may not be visible, but it's accessible. So thank you. Sorry for speaking a bit fast. I hope translation was manageable, and it's still just a bit of our, communication and data analysis that we do and communicate, but just I hope there was some flavor of, how we look at transparency and accountability. Thank you.
Thank you, Natasha. I think that you will get a reward for the fastest speaking, for the fastest speaker today. And if this would be a study visit, you would be able to speak like for an hour and a half at least. So thank you that you zipped the presentation into this 15-20 minutes. We are running extremely late, but we can prolong a little bit because I think that it's very interesting for all of you. We are now moving into environmental sector because we chose this organization because they have extremely good monitoring of internal efficiency. I think that they're quite the best about this in Slovenia. So Jaka, please do your magic.
Thank you. I'll also try to be a bit faster because we're late, and it's true. I mean, I'm a big fan of open philosophies, open data, open source, open science, open knowledge, all that, and it shows in how we run our organization. I'm very glad that I have other Excel lovers in the organization, and it shows. And we got stuck with transparency already when we started, because we started with a sort of a bang. Nobody knew each other, and then we wanted to organize a countrywide cleanup and engage everyone. And suddenly we had hundreds and hundreds of volunteers, and it was quickly visible that we need internal transparency to function well, because there were misunderstandings. People learned stuff from the media before they learned from the rest of the team. So it was quite challenging in that sense, and it really set the tone that, okay, we need to consider all audiences, like Natasha said. And in general, we work on waste management, on waste reduction, zero waste strategies, stuff like that. So we're in the environmental protection field. And of course, you can work on all sorts of levels, and we try to work on all of them, from the level of the individual to the level of organization to the level of various governments, be it local, national, international. And I believe that transparency plays a big role in all of them. But specifically because we're in the environmental field, we really believe that transparency can save us a lot of work. In essence, if the world was much more direct in its communication, if even the plants and the fungi could speak, I'm sure we'd have a much healthier relationship to our environment. So we're big proponents of increasing transparency in all senses of the word. But yeah, the thing that really makes transparency important for our sector is greenwashing. I know there's the concept of whitewashing. I don't know how much my colleagues have to contend with this, but for us, greenwashing is a constant struggle, a constant target to attack. And by greenwashing, I mean unsubstantiated claims, exaggerations about the environmental or climate efficiency of products or services, stuff like that. So companies like to bullshit us, basically, and we are here to fight that. And of course, if we want to fight that, if we want to hold them accountable, we have to be accountable ourselves. So, of course, the natural solution to that is to be more transparent. We can't be the same as them and then argue with them, because everyone would just say, yeah, you're two-faced, and of course you lose the argument. Now, transparency is really important. We really like to think we're a data-driven organization. We want to have backing for all our claims, for all our data points, for all our research. And this was really important, and really, I think the best example is, again, that first action that was so successful, because we wanted to clean the country of illegal dump sites. And of course, I knew a dump site somewhere, and that guy knew a dump site somewhere, but that's just anecdote. That's not evidence. And why would people believe us? Why would people say, yeah, you have a worthy cause, we'll join you? Well, without data, it's just basically an opinion. Deming is a famous statistician, by the way. He also said, in God we trust, everyone else needs to provide data. But so what we did was basically produce the first nationwide registry of these dump sites, And this basically paved the way to the success of the project, because everyone had access to this data. It was on a sort of a web portal that has this map, and you can search for your address, you can download all the data, inspect it, draw graphs, whatever you want. It was there, it was open, and it basically disarmed a lot of the opposition, a lot of the naysayers, and it really proved in black and white that, you know, the scale of the problem is big, the scale of the problem does require intervention, and it does require wide intervention from everyone. So really, transparency and open data go hand in hand, and we're really keen on it, I guess. And unfortunately, I have to speak also about defensive transparency in the sense of course, we're environmental NGOs, so we have a few extra rights when it comes to certain processes, when it comes to granting of permissions for plants and stuff like that. And of course, we get into fights with companies. So we're used to smear attacks in the media and stuff like that now and then. But unfortunately, we also have attacks from our peers. So we have a few NGOs in our sector that don't do much but sling shit, if I'm crass. And you know, they're just poisonous. They don't do much good anyway, but they're persistent. So we use transparency also as a way to dull this blade that they want to stab us with, and disarm their arguments, because, you know, they can make still a bunch of false claims, but if everyone can easily verify that they're false, they just lose on their legitimacy, and it doesn't have much of an impact on us. So it's really a weird aspect of transparency, but it's important for us. So what do we do? I won't talk about transparency in the sense of fundraising. Of course, it's connected to that. We have a specific page just for transparency related reasons, are in, let's say, data points, and it's prominently displayed on the website, right in the main menu. Of course, you have all the data about employees and organs, organizations, stuff like that elsewhere, but here it's the really core specific stuff about our transparency, and we list all existing tools for transparency. So there's the transparency register at the European level, where we do advocacy. There's the register of lobbyists in Slovenia, which thanks to Tina, we don't have to be part of anymore. But we list it, you know, so people know that these things exist, and, you know, you can check the transparency register, and we report a bunch of stuff there as well. So we're open with what we have to provide. We also list a direct link to the ERAR application, which is a sort of a semi-open data portal for public finance or public spending. And you can see for maybe, I don't know, 15 years back, all the transactions that occurred between local and national governments and public bodies, I guess, with any other entity. So we link directly to our page because we're not ashamed of the fact that we received part of the funding from national sources, but it's there for everyone to see. Of course, we also include financial reports and other obligatory reports, but we really try to make them human readable, easily digestible, and not too long. So we enhance this page with some extra stuff. For example, the link to the public portal on spending, we add a few words on what it all means, because, you know, the transaction information is very terse. Maybe there's a few words of the description and it's hard to really know what anything means. So we add a bit of an explanation, again, trying to bring the information closer to the user, make it easier for them to interpret it correctly. So for example, you know, there are a bunch of transfers involved. So one ministry didn't pay us anything for their own work. They're just the intermediary organ for some European project, for example. And some people really care about the specific source of funding. We also include a day in the life, personal blog sort of style reports, because I mean, now and then it's obvious that people still don't know how NGOs actually work. Of course, you have a bunch of associations and it's just good fun, but we who work professionally in this field, who have employees, are like anyone else. So we have to work normally and do all the usual stuff. And these reports are there just to illustrate that, you know, this process is human. We don't just siphon money from the government and then have great parties on yachts or something. But yeah, it's there, and we also include different, let's say, indicators that we consider are state of the art, that are best practices in the wider sector. Tina already mentioned the charity navigator. We took that as a model a few years back for some other stuff that I'll present. But yeah, extra indicators like she mentioned, for example, the ratios between minimum, maximum wage and stuff like that. But also, of course, we'll add the link to our profile on Dobrodel PKC portal once that's fully operational. And I think the main output when it comes to transparency of our work would be the yearly report. So this is a really terse, well-designed, and contentful, easy to digest report of our major achievements, of our partners that we work with, of the areas that we worked on. So we also try to we draw maps where we've been present, where we've been talking, where we've been working with people, just also to show that we deserve the name without borders, but also to show that we're not just stuck in the capital. We care also about other provinces. For some reason, this is really important to people in Slovenia. And you can see here on the right side, this is part of the last year's report. On the second slide, we already have numerical indicators. So we really try to illustrate things with concrete numbers and concrete figures. And even in this report, we always have a slide that mentions the transparency page, that mentions where you can get more data, because we don't do this transparency work just because we think it's important or because Tina is nagging us. We believe this is useful and we want people to see it and to ingest it and to question it if needed. And so we siphon people there whenever we can, basically, because it's there for a purpose and it serves several functions. And these yearly reports, they take some time to prepare, but now we have quite a fixed process on how to prepare them. We know, okay, we have this, 20 slides that we always want them to be inside, and these are the sources. So we're getting better at generating them in a fast manner. And then each year we just refresh a bit the design. And the design itself, just to make things faster, is done in Canva, which is a sort of a web design service. So multiple people can work on it at once, basically. As far as transparency of our results, again, even on our main page, even on our English web page, which is just a short business card, basically, we immediately mention our main indicators, our main claims to fame, and we really try to substantiate our work in that sense. But also for any project, any program, any campaign that we do, we have this small format where we list the main work, the main, I guess, targets and the main achievements, sometimes the main learning outcomes, who we worked with, etc. And I think the best example of this would be the current page of our work with municipalities, where we help them minimize, optimize their waste management, because it's almost like an open data portal. There's a 2-line description of the summary results and some summary statistics, and then you have all these data reports, graphs, numbers for each municipality. And it was designed this way, not only for us, for our transparency, but also for the transparency of the municipal work, because then they are held accountable by anyone that wants to read this and inspect it. And it really helps our partners in the rest of the world, actually. So as far as efficiency is concerned, that's true. We also take efficiency, of course, seriously. We have to survive somehow. But since I mentioned that we're data-driven, we try to get all the numbers connected somehow and use them to our advantage. So one thing that we're transparent about is how we spend our time. So of course, time in our case, because we're also a watchdog organization, we're also sort of a think tank, time is the most costly or the biggest expense that we have. So we really monitor it in great detail. So for example, we would split our work days into which fields someone worked on. This is, I think, mine. That's why it's so diverse. But this is just for one person. Then, for the whole month, you get summary statistics. And then for the whole year, we get summary statistics. And by the end of the year, this is really useful because, of course, these tables are useless to report for people for transparency reasons, because there's too many numbers, there's too much to explain, and who knows what. But it's useful internally. So for example, each row here is an employee, and then each column is a category of work, be it some form of, I don't know, administration or financing or some project, campaign, program. And then we can see at the end of the year, oh, apparently this year, the main project was this thing in this column, which probably means that it deserves the main spot in the yearly report. And we can also, because we have detailed accounting on this level, not just on the level that's required by the funders, sometimes we can get much better outputs sometimes, how efficient we were with how much time we perceived we need and how much time we actually needed to do something. And we can also see that, okay, we were working on all these fields, but there's this program here that 6 of us spent only 40 hours of work in total the whole year on. So maybe this is something that we should just cut out completely to really keep our focus and not worry about it anymore. Or maybe it's something that just for some reason is not getting the needed attention. You know, we have to revisit our vision, see, is this something that's contributing to the impact that we want to have or not? And we can be extra efficient by then pairing all these categories with our income sources. And then we can see, okay, yeah, we spend not much time here, but it generates a lot of revenue. So this is useful to have because it covers maybe the cost of something that's virtually impossible to fundraise for, but is also very needed for what we want to achieve. And like I said, this is really useless for anyone else. So we use a summary of this, and I already showed this picture based on the model from the Charity Navigator in the United States. So we split the categories of time in admin, in finance, and in content, basically. And let's say the borders between good and bad and green and red are from their standards, but this is just time. So of course, for next year, we hope to include all the other costs because the results, I guess, will be even better. But of course, this is just a simplification. This is a sort of a model because you have, you know, a bunch of admin work that's there that's absolutely needed for you to do any content work or any financial work and vice versa. So it's of course an approximation, and it's a sort of a living methodology that keeps changing, but we report this each January to our peers, to our subscribers, to our members, just to show that we really care about our efficiency, even though, of course, it could always be better. And yeah, that's about it from my side. Thanks.
Thank you, Jaka. So yes, I think that from the Slovenia side, for now, this is it. I'm sorry that we took a bit more time, but as always, when you are speaking about something that you are really into, then it takes a bit of a time. So we are open for questions, comments right now. I think that there was one from Susanna from way before.
Yes, let me, because it was posted in Macedonia, I will translate it for you guys. She said, she reacted to something that you said, Tina, when you said that this is a pilot phase of the Charity Navigator. You're trying to compile all the data to see what kind of scores we will get, and then we go public. And you said at some point that we will not nag the organization at this time because it's crisis. We will not ask them to give us this transparency data. And then Susanna reacted, but is this okay in a sense that in a crisis period, maybe organization needs to be devoted more time for transparency because there is some malversation, mismanagement of some things that can happen, and they cannot be picked up because of this crisis. So maybe you want to respond to that first.
Yeah. Yes.
And I ask all of you who wants to have a question, raise your hand and you take the mic. This should be open discussion. I think we can go 5 to 10 minutes more and then we close the event. And I want to say that thank you for the participants. They use very nice language. I think it was easily understandable. People are getting feedback to us in private messages. Thank you all. I hope you like it. They asked for more information resources. We're going to do that from Monday. So now you go on.
Yes. Yeah, thank you for the question. I agree that there is, we should not forget about transparency in any time, but because of the methodology, because this is additional to at least majority of organization of what they already do, and it needs additional time, this Charity Navigator, at least to feed in the data and everything. At the moment, our country is extremely stressed due to COVID. There are huge amounts of volunteers sent to the hospitals to the homes for elderly. So NGO sector is now like really working 24/7. These are those that have volunteers, for example. Then there is fundraising, and then you have humanitarian organizations that work with victims of violence, for example, people with mental health issues, homeless people. So all organizations now have a lot more work to do. So we don't want to now to put this additional stress on them. So that's why we are waiting.
I can see that Marina Tomova Jovanovski is raising her hand. Marina, go ahead. Marina, can you hear us?
Hi, can you hear me? Okay,
Yes.
thank you. First of all, thank you for the invitation. And also, you have a great presentation, all of you. I want to introduce myself. President of non-government organization Changemakers for All. And we're registered in more sectors, but our focus is environmental sector and also humanitarian sector. I'm involved from the Yugoslavian war with humanitarian actions voluntarily. I lived in Holland for almost 16 years. I also worked there voluntarily. And now we have our cooperative. And as Ms. Tina Diviak said right now, we all the time we had need for humanitarian help till COVID crisis, but now it's more than needed. So I'm very grateful that this is happening and that I can join this meeting. And the time is, as you said, we have little time. So maybe the next time we can talk more, more about this, what is actually needed here from the humanitarian sector, and so we can share advice and how can we work together, because we have a lot of work at the moment and we are not financed. I don't know, I know that this is weird, but we are doing voluntarily, and so it's a great opportunity to join together with you or your help or support. So the next time, as I said, we can talk more about this. How can we help more, because we need more people who will join to help from every possible side in this COVID crisis, with the humanitarian sector and also environmental sector. But if I talk, it will take maybe 15 minutes, so I will leave for the next meeting.
Yes, thank you. I think you mentioned something of how we should organize, what kind of what practices can help us move more funds in the humanitarian sector, not just to wait for the government, but this is topic, I think, for a different discussion. We have Milka Ivanovska that she wants to join. Milka, go on.
Hi, everyone, and thank you very much for the presentations. I'm really impressed with all the practices that you have shared, and I can say, because I'm a nonprofit researcher, particular research in nonprofit governance in developed democracies, everything that you presented really matches the practices of major charities and organizations across Europe. But my concern is, and this is more a comment than a question, I guess, is that many of the organizations in the population of civil society organizations are smaller, micro or medium organizations that do not have, unfortunately, the resources that organizations like those that we have heard about have in terms of producing glossy magazines and really updated fancy websites. And of course, while organizations should aspire to get there, this is not the resources that they operate with. So I guess it would be also interesting maybe to hear what would be maybe some free tools that organizations can, small organizations or medium can access to use in improving their internal transparency or transparency towards the public. And then another is more a question about Tina. I was really, really interested in the register that you're making. So I'm just interested to hear if you aim to expand it to other organizations beyond the humanitarian ones. And then also, isn't there already like a state register or public register that kind of provides some basic information on the financial work of organizations or their project activities? And yeah, so can you maybe triangulate the information that you have already publicly with what you are doing and how that can be breached? I mean, and this is the last thing, I think it's really unfortunate that we in Macedonia don't have any kind of public register that basically provides the data that organizations already prepare and submit on annual level. I mean, there is a central register and just basically they sit on documents and data that organizations prepare, but these are not available to the public. So we can't even make as researchers and the step towards actually evaluating and understanding how the practices can be improved based on what organizations already do in a systematic way. But yeah, thank you for organizing this event. It's very informative and very interesting.
Yes, thank you, Milka. Hi, nice to see you again. It's been years since we saw each other last. But so I agree that the organizations today are even for the Slovenian perspective bigger. But all of the things that are presented can be monitored and can be publicized on the web page without, let's say, shiny reports. And this is how we are doing it, for example, that we publish all this data, but only on our website. And we use only Excel sheet. And if you are doing it regularly, it doesn't mean that this is a huge time investment. And this is also what are we doing now with the Charity Navigator. We will support organizations in developing Excel sheets, if you want, you know, so that their finance person or accountant or whoever can just, you know, fill in the data and then the Excel will do their wonders. And it doesn't mean that this is like a huge, let's say, human resource burden for that. This is first thing. Then yes, we have IPES. This is the Agency for Public Registry, which collects annual financial and narrative reports, and all of these reports are published and openly accessible for associations, for example, but not for foundations, for example, because the foundations have very old law. But as I explained before, these financial reports and balance sheets you don't see anything out of it. And what we want on the Charity Navigator is to have easily understandable data. And yes, we were thinking also about connecting the two registers, but then we fought against it because whatever is in on IPES, it's not so relevant as, you know, these household finances. Did I answer everything?
I think also she asked about, would this Charity Navigator be
Yeah.
Organizations?
Yeah, so in the first round, we are focusing on humanitarian organizations because for them, we want them to be on the Charity Navigator, but when it will be launched, it will be also freely accessible to anyone else. So any other organization that fundraises or from whatever reason wants to be on the Charity Navigator, they can join.
Thank you, Tina. Thank you all for participating. We are running late. I think we need to finish by 1 o'clock for sure to open the space for other organizations to use the Zoom. Before we end, I like to. I can see that something was new, something was, but something was familiar for ourselves. I think this is the impression that many of other participants have. And there is a lot to improve. As Petar says, in something we are good, in something we are bad. Then we need to find what is appropriate to this context we are working on. I can see that transparency can be transformative force in what we do internally, so that we can manage to access to more beneficiaries, to cover more actions, to truly change the society we live in. And I think the stakes are high for Macedonia, because we are still kind of trying to decapture the state and open the space for civil society. It's very hard in these times. Tina, just one word I need to ask, really. We know what is happening in Slovenia. We heard about the Metelkova Street case. How you're doing? Like, tell us just on a level of solidarity, how you stand the attacks of the government for these ultimatums that they give you to move out the civic space and breach the agreement that they had with you for so long. Thank you, and then we will descend. I thank you all. Be healthy, stay tuned. We will continue with this kind of conversation, and hopefully Macedonia some network will emerge to advocate for transparency and advocacy, as is our intention. Thank you.
Yes, thank you, Alex. Yes, we are still shocked, actually, because we haven't been used to this kind of narratives and attacks. But I have to say that what is a good thing from all of this is that we are also witnessing some kind of a revival of civil society. We all organizations that have been maybe a bit passive over the years are now very active, and let's call them traditional NGOs are now cooperating with the new movements, the activists. So it's I am still optimistic. I'm afraid, but I am still actually optimistic that I think that we just need to, survive for these 2 years, and then we'll go back to normal, or even before, hopefully. Thank you all, and goodbye.
Thank you all, and goodbye. Speak to you in another opportunity for this topic as well. Bye all.